When I was ordained as rabbi, I walked in procession with my classmates. Each of us carried a Torah rolled to our favorite passage. Mine was rolled to Genesis 25, 8-11. And here's the lines. And Abraham expired and died at a good old age. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, and Isaac settled near Be'er Lachai Roi. These lines actually come from Parshat Chaye Sarah, which literally means the life of Sarah, but it's really about the burials of Sarah and Abraham, and it's the one that follows the one that we just read. And it seems to address an unanswered question. What happened to Isaac and Sarah after the Akedah? Commentators speculate. They remark on the proximity of Sarah's death to the story of her son's near death. Some say that Satan, tricked her and told her that Isaac was dead, and she died. Others that upon hearing about Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac, she died of a heart attack. Another tradition asserts that upon hearing about God's command and Abraham's obedience, Sarah chose to leave the world in protest, saying, I refuse to live in such a world, meaning I refuse to live with such a God. And Isaac, after his near sacrifice, he sought comfort at Be'er Lachai Roi, well of the life-giving vision, the place we spoke of yesterday, where Hagar named God, the only person in the Bible to name God, and name God the one who sees me, the God that we speak to on these days. Isaac sought comfort with his half-brother Ishmael and stepmother Hagar after the trauma of his near death at the hand of his father. Isaac sought consolation from two people who had also suffered as a result of Abraham's obedience to God. Later, Isaac and Ishmael stood shoulder to bury their father. Imagine these sons standing together to mourn the father who had traumatized them both. The image of those two boys standing at that grave serves, I think, as a healing icon for our world and for the continually compounding legacy of trauma that is part of the Abrahamic tradition. In a search to reclaim religion for ethics, justice, healing, and peace, let us stand again at the grave of our common ancestor to acknowledge our common pain, to heal our familial rift, and to find a path to peace. Let us stand and mourn together. And there are groups in Israel and Palestine who do just this. They bring bereaved families together whose children whose family member were killed in terrorist incidents or in war, and they tell their stories, they listen, and then they become friends and they make peace. They come together to listen and to grieve. Oh, that Isaac and Ishmael had remained there to grieve Abraham as brothers, to review their lives and come to terms with the pain, to listen to their individual experiences of childhood and forgive each other for the obstacles of brotherly connection that were the obstacles to brotherly connection that were the result of their ancestors' actions. How different history might have been. I think of war as a perpetual reenactment of incompletely mourned grief. Pain is inflicted, and in response, more pain follows. It ricochets through the generations, and the planet never knows peace, and here we are today. In the cocoon of community, on the wings of the Kaddish, Jewish mourners have a place to express the full range of feelings. The passion that follows grief, so often acted out in anger and revenge, is soothed. With each recitation of the Kaddish, as often as 3 times a day for up to a year and on, For the rest of the mourner's life, the mourner repeats the scenario, braiding the deep emotions of grief into the Aramaic words, supported with strong amens from the community and ending with a prayer for peace. Over time, the tears of despair and the fires of rage can transform into a yearning for peace. Let's return to the scene of the Akedah, but let's return as if we were birds, not a flock, not birds of a feather, but birds of a different species, just as we are people of different tribes. The three Abrahamic traditions flying together, circling the sacred mountain, looking at Jerusalem from above. We see a bigger picture, above the discord, above the accusations, above the back and forth of different truths. You did this, but you did this, but you did this. Truths that will never be reconciled, and trauma that, as I said, ricochets from generation to generation. We see the land as a whole, rather than pieces of territory carved up and separated by lines on a map. Like astronauts looking at the Earth from the moon, we recognize that we are all in this together. But we are not at Be'er Lachai Roi, nor are we on the Temple Mount. We are in Los Angeles or on Zoom, trying hard to find hints of hope in the words of the Torah and the prayer book at a time when, for many, the impulse has been to reject the tradition completely. But there are hints of hope. I find them hiding in plain sight, just like the well that Hagar found in yesterday's Parsha. I find them in the names of the boys. Ishmael contains the word Shema, listen, and Isaac means laughter. Listen and laughter. Last month, nearly 500,000 people showed up in protest on the streets of Israel. They are people who have listened and they have heard the voices of suffering. They want their hostages home and they want an end to the suffering of others, not just among their own people, but also among the people in Gaza. With a bird's eye view of the demonstrations, it would have been remarkable to see the masses of people and hear their voices for peace rise to heaven. But on the ground, something else was clear. For those of you who have gone to the recent protests in LA and elsewhere, you've heard the signs, you've seen the signs, and you've heard the music. There is laughter. There is joy in coming together. And while we don't know what future provocation or response will look like, remember that feeling of being with other people. Remember what it's like to make sandwiches for a food bank with a group of people. Or, any of the acts of tzedakah that we do in a group, it always turns out to be a lot more about the community and about the fun that we have in doing it, the laughter and the listening. So let us imagine Ishmael and Isaac coming together again, coming together not just to bury the paternal trauma, but to listen and to laugh. Oh my goodness, if only. Oh, say shalom bimramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'emeru